Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. So last week I read chapters 1 through 6 of Doushitemo Furutakunai, or I'll Touch You Anyway. I think that's what it's called. Its English translation is. Anyway, Yoneda Kou's really great work. If you don't know who Yoneda Kou is, she's the author of Twittering Birds Never Fly, Suru, and she's also the author of this Doushitemo Furutakunai. And man, just a slice of life story last week, but with like so much emotion. And that's what I love about Yoneda Kou's work, is it's always there's sexiness, but there's also a lot of heart and a lot of emotion and a lot of angst. And it's really, really well done and well written. So I really appreciate her as a mangaka for creating that and that series and doing such a great job with it. And so the last week's reading, I was floored. I was not expecting it to be that like deep and impacting as it was. I thought it was just gonna be like a lighthearted romp and there was gonna be some guys making out, but no. It got really deep really quick. So with that being said, there is a sequel to it, and I accidentally started on it last week and I was like, oh no, we need to stop and do a whole thing on just it. And it is Soredemo Yasashii Koi wo Suru. Or the English translation is I will love you, still I will love you softly. Still I will love you softly. And apparently this is Onoda's story. So I've seen this kind of trope with some BL manga where we start out with one couple, and then if we do a sequel series, we focus on a different couple. So we had that with Doushitemo, where we started out with Kusakabe and Rahito, and then as we went on, we got to like Sora and Hana Sensei, and Hara Sensei. So we got Sora to Hara was kind of the sequel to it, where they got to do their own thing. And then you have stories like Given, where we had Uenoyama and Mafiu, and then we talked about Haruki and Kaji. And so then with Twittering Birds, I mean, it's still Yashiro and Domeki. But with this series, I also talked last week about Sayonara Game, Change World, and then Love Nest, and they kind of do the same thing. They start out with one couple, and then the sequel series follows a different couple. And it seems like this series is doing the exact same thing, where we started out with Togawa and Shima, and then now Onoda, which is one of the workers there, we're going to transition over to his story, which is interesting. And he's straight in this story, so I'm very curious if he just falls in love with the guy too. I'm very curious how this is going to go down. But this is the sequel series, and so I'm pretty excited to watch it. So as far as what happens after this series, I'm still kind of mulling it over. I have a lot of options, but I'm going to surprise y'all next week with what's coming next. There's at least one more series I want to read at least before I do like a poll or anything like that. There's one that I've been promising for a while that I would get to, and so I'm thinking about getting to it next week maybe. We shall see. We shall see. But I'm going to keep it a surprise. But in the meantime, there may be a few other series I touch base before that one. Again, I'll surprise y'all next week. But I definitely wanted to read the sequel series to this because it just looked like it was going to be a lot of fun. So, with that being said, we are going to start Soredemo Yasashii Koi wo Suru, or Still I Will Love You Softly, here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, y'all. Oh, man. Oh, that took a while to get through, but that was worth it. Oh, my gosh. Okay. 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 Fair enough. Fair enough. Man, that was really good. That was indeed. So yeah, that honestly, the sequel series, I know it was more a set of like side stories and doujinshi, and it wasn't quite like the full arcing plot that Doushitemo was. But I really liked that. That was definitely a lot more lighthearted than the last week's volume. In terms of Kou's work, Yoneda Kou, that was probably like the most lighthearted and humorous set of stories that she's done that I've read. And I really liked that. Onoda, Ryo Onoda. I I liked Rio. I mean, I liked Onoda's character in the last volume with Tagawa and Shima. I liked him as a side character, and I always felt like his liking of Shima felt a little bit forced, maybe in the last volume, in the last series in Doushitemo, because it just seemed like it was just there to complicate the plot more and to give like Tagawa a little bit of insecurity, like, oh, my friend might also like Shima. So I didn't quite think it felt a little forced in that series, but his relationship with Deguchi I really liked it, especially Deguchi being like this pretty boy that, the pretty boy that is the salesman that puts on the face, I thought that was really interesting, the way that was portrayed. But yeah, these two stories, I've told you guys in the last video that I've read Sayonara Game and Change World and Love Nest, and I'm going to eventually do a soapbox talking about all 4 of those volumes together. There's 2 on Love Nest and the Sayonara Game, and in that series, a pin is one of the gifts that's given, like a nice fancy pin, and that was given here at the end to Deguchi. But I liked the conversation that Deguchi had here because it wasn't really brought up too much in Doushitemo about. And I'm curious, and this might be a Japanese thing more so, because it seemed to me like Tagawa and Onoda were more bisexual than being straight, because they're with Shima and Deguchi, so it's like, are they the only guys that they're interested in, or how does that work? Because to me it felt like maybe he was, because when he said he's like, now I have to be double jealous because you could be in love with other guys, so it's like, is Onoda more bisexual than he is just straight, or is that just the translation? If y'all are more familiar with that culturally, that would be good to note in the comments, because that part confuses me a little bit, because part of me was like, well, Tagawa and Onoda are just bisexual. They just happen to like girls and guys, but they're dating Shima and Deguchi. So I don't know if bisexuality is something that's really talked about in Japanese culture as much. It seems like it's either guys like guys, girls like girls, or they like each other, and then there's these exceptions like in these stories. So I don't know. I love the actual conversation of who's top and who's bottom in this. Like, that was really funny. And the fact that Onoda had to go and watch on the internet to see how that all works, and him being like, and then Shima coming in and finding out about it, that was hilarious. And Shima being like, okay, well, you're watching that, that's fine. But I like the idea of Deguchi and Shima, these 2 gay characters in these stories, coming at their relationships from very different ways. Like in the last week's reaction with that manga, Shima had a very, very negative experience dating someone that he thought liked guys, but ended up, he was just using Shima and using him for sex. And so he had a very bad relationship with that, and so it's kind of thrown him off the whole idea of relationships to begin with, especially with straight men. And then Deguchi is pretty open about his promiscuity. Like, he's just like, even while he liked Onoda, he was like, I'm still seeing other people because you've not told me how you felt, and I'm not just going to wait around, I'm going to go out and do my thing, even if it's not love. And Onoda becomes really jealous of that, which I could definitely relate to Onoda. I would probably be jealous if I figured out that I liked somebody and they've been, seeing other people. But at the same time, he couldn't really be mad at Deguchi because they weren't really dating. And he came out and said that. He was like, I can't be mad at you for doing that, but I was jealous in that moment. And that just reaffirmed my feelings for you. So I really like the conversations that these 2 have about relationships and unrequited love. And are you just in a relationship with me for this reason? Or is this actually something that we're going to try and work on? Deguchi and Onoda's relationship was very different from Tagawa and Shima. Like, Tagawa and Shima was dealing with the concept of family and normalcy, and them being in a relationship. Is that really going to lead them to a place and a goal that they're both happy with? Whereas with Deguchi and Onoda, it's less about that and more about how are we defining our relationship, and are we okay with being with one another? Because it seems like Shima and Tagawa are okay with being with one another. They're totally fine, but Deguchi was afraid that Onoda wouldn't explicitly come out and say that he wanted to be in a relationship with him. And then at the end, we get the flashback of them meeting before that dinner, and Tagawa kind of like forces everybody's hands, and then Shima's like, yeah, well, it's a double date. Or not Shima, but Deguchi. But those were both really good. They were both really good series. I'm like, wore out from reading it. But I like Yoneda Kou a lot, and her humor in those afterwards, like the way she's just talking, that's very much my style of humor, the way that she writes. And I like that we don't get any explicit, because I was expecting it. I kept waiting for it. Like as soon as Deguchi and Onoda hooked up, I was like, okay, we're gonna see them get down to business because it's Yoneda Kou. And I like that she was tasteful enough. She's like, no, it just fades to black. And she's like, use your imagination. That's what happens. We'll see the aftermath. And she was very, I will say this, Yoneda Kou is very tasteful with her BL. She can be explicit, as we've seen from Twittering Birds, but it is for a reason. There is a plot device, there is a plot in place, and Yoneda Kou is not just going to give you needless fan service. She is going to tie it into a story and make it have meaning, and I really, really appreciate that. I like that she does that. She's probably one of my favorite BL authors that I've read so far because of how she just weaves in these stories and these characters that you instantly like and relate to, and you want to root for them. Both of these, this week and last week's video, I wanted to root for these couples so bad. I was like, no, don't break up. Don't be stupid. Stay together. And so I feel like she gives us in these two stories like the happy ending that we want, but it doesn't seem cheesy and forced. It seems like both of these characters have to earn their happy ending. And it's not set in stone that it's the end. It just is left that we think that we know they're happy in this moment, and we can imagine that they keep going on being that way. So I really like that. Her work, these last two volumes were so good, and I'm so glad that I read them. It is taxing reading these manga aloud, but I love it so much. So so other videos in the works. You guys will probably see next week what that's going to be. But in any case, I hope you all enjoy what's to come. I won't spoil it yet on here, but yeah, these two were really good to read. I definitely am going to probably read some series, without reacting to them. I'll probably end up reading them on my own time and then coming back and doing soapbox episodes of them. Like I'm going to do a Sayonara Game and Love Nest. I'm going to do a soapbox on it eventually because that series is really good. But I went ahead and read them because I was like, I couldn't wait. So there's going to be more of those. And then I've had people send me some video requests already, and so I'm going to be looking at those as well. So there's going to be more content on here about that, but these two volumes specifically were requested so much that I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to look at it and watch it and, just go with it. So I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and me reading along. Please feel free to comment down below. I'm very curious to know your thoughts. Yoneda Kou, now we just have to wait for Twittering Birds till the next volume come out and the Storm Breaks movie. I hope that they would animate these two series. I kept thinking, I know they made the live action of Doushitemo, but I really would love to see anime adaptations of both of these series. I'm like, they're both really good. Why don't they have anime adaptations? So maybe it'll happen in 2022 or sooner. Who knows? But in any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back next week with more reactions. Bye.